better daily, where we work hard in our minds, bodies, and our spirits to become 1% better every single day. Download the app and join our Betterment family at betterdaily.live to catch the video version of these podcasts. Here's your host and my dad, Alex Van Houten.
What is up, Betterment family? This is Alex Van Houten in Better Daily Live. Happy Thursday. Today is Word Thursday, and the word is forgiveness. I'm very excited about this word because it's such a complicated and powerful word, but at the same time, when we get down to the heart of it, it's simple and amazing. So I'm excited to dive into it with you. Good morning, KT. Good to see you this morning. Now, forgiveness, if you look up the word and the etymology of the word, it's actually not very helpful whatsoever to unpack what the word actually means. If you look up the dictionary definition of forgiveness, it means literally, if you look it up, it says to stop being angry at someone and to stop blaming them. So I've got a fun little experiment for us to run real quick. Next time you're angry, next time you're anxious, frustrated, upset, go tell yourself in the mirror, stop being angry. Good luck with that. Your inner 2-year-old is not going to respond to that in the least. But the American Psychological Association, in the studies of forgiveness, this is something we're starting to study now, forgiveness and its impact on our neurobiological system, the way we think, the way we feel, even illnesses, the way we regulate stress. They actually have a much deeper definition. And the definition is the conscious process of recognizing victimhood, resentment, releasing negative emotions. So it's instead of this like, you stop being angry and you forgive them. It's actually a conscious process. In fact, they list it out as a thing that takes time to actually decide on or come about, right? So, when you're a kid on the playground and your friend trips you and you fall and eat it and you're mad and you stand up and they say, I'm sorry, and you say, I forgive you, and then that's the end of that, right? When you're a kid, that's the end of that. But when you're an adult, forgiveness often takes on this other thing, which is we're not getting tripped on the playground. We might be dealing with betrayal. We might be dealing with somebody lying to our face about something that really, really matters to us and hits us really deep. We might be dealing with abuse and trauma from way back in childhood, much more than getting tripped on the playground. There could be a bunch of things that we're holding on to. Or maybe in adulthood, there's something we're holding on to that we did ourselves, and we haven't forgiven ourselves, and we haven't asked forgiveness of others. And this is where, when you say the definition from the American Psychological Association, it sounds cool, but you're also like, what does that process of transformation from resentment look like? Now, this is something that it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to talk about forgiveness. I will talk about a study in a second, but it's almost impossible to talk about forgiveness without digging into some of the religious writings on forgiveness, because forgiveness at the end of the day, it's a very deeply personal and for most people a very deeply spiritual and religious part of their life. And I find it fascinating. So I actually put out on social media this morning a passage I was reading from Mark. In Mark 11, Jesus is instructing other individuals on how to pray and what to pray about. And before he gets into the nitty-gritty of how to pray, because he's kind of an authority on this. He talks to God on a regular basis, and people want that connection. People want that connection with the transcendent. They want that connection with the divine. And they're like, teacher, teach us how to do this thing. And he says, when you pray, forgive other people of their sins so that your Father in heaven can forgive you. And so he makes this connection between the things that you've done wrong, that God, big G, the people around you, the community, all those things that people could hold against you. Maybe even you could hold against you. He makes that connection between being released of that responsibility to stand up to those things, to make an account for those things. He makes the connection between that and whether or not you're willing to let go of your own resentment. In other words, and he says this differently in Matthew, judge not lest ye be judged. With what measure you judge others will be the measure that you're judged by. And it's a very complicated psychological thing. And there's a part of that definition of the American Psychological Association I didn't share with you. It's the releasing of the resentment involved in victimhood. Somebody did something to me. I resent them for it. They suck, man. Regardless of whether or not they deserve it. And that's the rub. That's what makes forgiveness. Forgiveness is somebody did not earn your releasing of the resentment. They didn't do anything necessarily to make it right. And you let it go anyway. And it's really interesting. The reason I'm digging into this at all is because I find a very interesting connection between the idea of forgiveness and the idea of healing. So there's a passage in the New Testament where a paralytic man is in front of Jesus, and before he heals him of paralysis, before he teaches him to get up and walk, before he gets there, he says, "Your sins are forgiven." And that just makes everybody go ballistic, right? Because who's this guy who can forgive other people's sins? But the idea that until the sins are forgiven, until forgiveness is present, until resentment can be released, real healing is obstructed. Real healing hasn't occurred. And it's such a hard thing to wrap your head around, but try to wrap your head around with me about this, okay? If you're holding something against somebody, maybe yourself, and you're all tied up in knots inside about it, you're angry. And hell, maybe you have a great reason to be. And it's just eating at you on the inside. Something that keeps you awake at night, something you think about during the day, something that motivates you, changes the way you act, something that changes the way you speak. And you're holding on to that on the inside. Is it crazy to think that that might not make you sick from the inside out? Is it not crazy to imagine that that stress, that difficulty, that distraction, that's just eating at you on the inside? Is it crazy to think that that won't physically manifest? That that won't come out of you? And I don't mean to sound esoteric here. Stress is stress is stress. And our ability to be resilient to stress really affects our ability to heal. Physically affects our ability to heal. I'm not talking about healing from some esoteric trauma in childhood, although you might need that. I'm talking about physical healing. If I lift weights today, I'm going to tax the body. I'm going to stress the body out. And if I'm going to get the benefit from those weights, I better be able to recover. I better be able to heal from what I just did in the weight room. You know, a surefire way to make sure that I don't get those adaptations? This is scientific. Don't sleep. Don't sleep. Don't rest. Don't relax. Stay under stress so that the body can't heal. That's a great way to ruin your workout. That's physical. When you're under stress, you cannot heal well. And forgiveness is this wild thing where the things that are internally stressing us out, the things we're holding on to, the resentment, and maybe, again, I'm not telling you you're wrong for this. Maybe you have great reasons. Maybe you have just reasons to be angry with yourself. Maybe you have just reasons to be angry with that individual. Maybe you have just reasons for being angry at the government. Whatever it is, forgiveness is this really cool, miraculous thing where letting go of that in a conscious way, consciously letting go of this thing, can immediately reduce your stress. It can immediately straighten out the knots tied up inside of you. If you can find the place in your heart to do so. If you can say, I forgive you. I forgive me. I am forgiven. If you can say those things, all of a sudden, the things that were obstructing your healing, they start to go away. And it's crazy. And I don't care how saintly you are. I'm preaching to me right now. I don't care how saintly you are. There's some things that you can be forgiving others of. There's a ledger you're keeping that if you so choose, you can wipe it clean. And in doing so, your ledger can get wiped clean. KT says, thank you. We needed to hear this. You're very welcome. I needed to hear it too. And I'm going to leave you with a study that I found very fascinating. About 4 years ago, a study came out in the American Journal of Psychiatry. What they were looking at is forgiveness as it relates to your neurobiology. That is to say, is there any connection between somebody's quickness to forgive? That's not a good word for it. Somebody's readiness to forgive. Is there a connection between that and how the nervous system processes stress? Or in other words, are you more resilient to stress if you're the kind of person who's ready to forgive difficult things, ready to forgive wrongs? And so they put a couple hundred young adults through this study. And what they were looking at was how does the body react to stress? And is that related to whether or not people are ready to forgive? And it was very interesting. So they asked these individuals, tell us about the most difficult thing you've ever had to forgive somebody of, and tell us what the result was. And so they had to write about this thing, and the harder the forgiveness was, the deeper it was, the more traumatic the sin, so to speak, then they graded these things, like, wow, this is a deep childhood trauma. This is difficult. Wow, this is a betrayal. Somebody lied to this person. It was brutal. Or like, they got cut off in traffic and they're like, oh, well, I guess I'll forgive you. They kind of rank ordered this stuff. Hard to rank order, but they rank ordered this stuff. And then they did stressful things. So, for instance, you guys have seen me and Gabriel play the pain game, right? That's one of the ways that they test stress or pain in a laboratory setting. They put your hand in, ice water, and they look at all kinds of things, how long you can hold it in there. They also put like a little measure of skin conductance right here. So if you start to sweat on your hands right here, that's actually a measure of stress. And they can measure how well your skin conducts electricity. That tells them how much you're sweating in your hands. That's a measure of psychological stress. They could also measure things like your heart rate. So if you put your hand in ice water, for instance, how high your heart rate goes. That's called resilience. If you deal with something stressful and your body goes, we're okay. We're going to be fine. We're resilient. We don't need to react to this thing so intensely. We're not raw. That's your neurobiological system telling you you're not raw. You'll be fine. You're resilient before your body has to react so strongly. Those who had to forgive something brutal, those who found it in themselves to let go of resentment in something that was just awful, whether it was on themselves or a family member, a community, or something else, some atrocity, those were the people who tested most resilient to stress in the study. Physiologically, not mentally, not like, oh yeah, I'm fine, everything's good, I could hold my hand here in the ice water forever, I could watch this scary movie thing and my heart rate doesn't go up. In the study, when they tested the effect of stress on the physical body, there was a direct correlation between somebody's ability and readiness to forgive and their resilience to physical stress. So the word forgiveness, we think about this from a spiritual and religious context, but at the root of it, forgiveness is the tearing out of the spiritual cancers in our life that lead to those physical impediments to healing. Or at least, that's what I think about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does forgiveness mean to you? And if I missed something here, please fill me in. Because forgiveness is such a big word, but the core of it's something so simple. Are you resentful? Yes or no? Are you ready to go through the conscious process, the transformation process, letting it go? If not, just to let it go. Not because somebody deserves it, but because it's keeping you from healing. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on Word Thursday in Better Daily Live. Tomorrow's Flex Friday. You can call me Coach because we're going to go through an exercise that's going to move you forward on your 1% better journey. Until then, though, it's just 1%. You got this.
Thank you for joining us for your 1% Better today. Don't forget to subscribe for the podcast. Leave us a raving review to tell others how Better Daily has helped you in your journey. If you want more Better Daily, download our app and join our Betterment family at betterdaily.live. Use code POD to get 25% off your subscription. That's POD, all caps, to save 25% on your subscription. We all have a cross to carry. It's lighter when we do it together. Go to betterdaily.live today.